Hi, this is Chris at the Wyoming State Library. Welcome to Database of the Month, Shakespeare in GoWild.net.
Well, some sat the host, unless you know Shelley and Keats and Pope. Dainty Debbies will call you a dope, but the poet of them all, who will start 'em simply raving, is the poet people call the Bard of Stratford-on-Avon. Brush up your Shakespeare, start quoting him now. Brush up your Shakespeare, and the women you will wow.
We'll begin here on GoWild.net, and we'll start with the literature subject heading. The first one we want to look at as we're studying Shakespeare is ProQuest Literature Online, or LION. Literature Online contains over 350,000 works of poetry, prose, and drama from the 8th to the 21st century, with a large library of criticism and reference material that includes thousands of literary articles, essays, biographies, and encyclopedia entries. To see more, there's a tab here at the top called About, which gives you information on literature online, and you can also peruse the complete contents. Notice that you can break it down by text, criticism, reference, or video and audio. But let's start out with a basic search and take a look at some of their key pieces. Here's our results page for Shakespeare. It gives me authors, poetry, drama, prose, literary works, criticism, but notice that it gives me several under Shakespeare because I did not specify. So now I can select William Shakespeare, and it gives me some basic background information: birth, death, gender, nationality, as well as literary periods, which is going to be a nice piece to have if you want to study other people in those literary periods. Below that, you'll find that you can view text by the author and search within those texts. Look at journal articles and citations about the author. View reference materials, bibliography, and biography. And we'll look at other sources, Poets Onscreen and Shakespearean audio plays. So let's look at view text by this author to start. Here you'll find lists of their poetry and drama. But if these long lists and multiple pages is daunting, if we go back one step, you'll see that we can search within texts. So if you were looking for a specific line, title, character, this is where you can look for that. And there it's found the line I was searching for and tells me where it appears in Shakespeare's work. Back on our main page for Shakespeare, let's look at some other options here. Let's look at the reference materials. You'll see that we have bibliographic and biographical information as well as plays in student guides, and we'll look at those here in a moment. There's also, of course, the bibliography, which we just saw, but let's open the biographical information. Here's a very complete biography, and we can get citation information for that, as well as save, email, export, and print, and you can get the durable URL to the specific biography. So let's look at some other search options in ProQuest LION. I'm going to go back to our home page here. You can access these search methods author, text, criticism, and reference in the middle of the page here, or using the tabs at the top. We're going to start with authors. You'll see that we can search or browse. Let's start with the browse option, which gives us a list of authors, alphabetic, and you just scroll through the pages. Notice there's a little icon that lets you know there is text available with those particular authors. But let's go into the search box. You'll see that we have several search fields that we can either fill in ourselves, or notice it has look up nationality, for example, ethnicity, literary movement, and literary period. To find out more about that, on the left-hand side, next to the header, you'll see a little information. This gives you the scope note, which gives you the criteria for what they used to create these lists. So let's use these lists. I'm going to look up ethnicity, and let's just select one here. And let's add literary period to that. And now I've populated my search boxes. I do not have to put an author name in and launch my search. And it gives me a name or names. Again, I have an icon that does let me know there is text available for that author. And here's the information available. So let's use the next tab over and go into texts. Again, I'm using the drop-down arrow where I can search or browse. And again, let's start over here on browse. We can browse all texts by that list we saw at the beginning when we saw the complete contents. Or we can break it down. For example, I can browse some major anthologies of English poetry and get all the way in to the full text of that item. I can browse major literary works in journals. And this is also, again, where we find the video and audio collections. We'll look at Poets Onscreen later, but let's take a look right away at Shakespeare audio. These are the fully dramatized, unabridged audio recordings, and they're recorded by noted and mainly Royal Shakespeare Company actors. It includes all 38 plays. You can look at cast and production details if you've got a theater class, for example, studying this. But let's go on in. For example, I'm going to select Midsummer Night's Dream, and you'll notice it's broken down by scenes, and it gives you the time. And this is a great way to introduce folks to Shakespeare. The energy, the emotion, and the language.
Is all our company here?
You were best to call them generally man by man, according to the script.
Here's a scroll of every man's name, which is thought fit through all Athens to play in our interlude before the Duke and the Duchess on his wedding day.
So those clips can all be played here. Notice it opened on the right-hand side so that I can pause and use that if I were doing a presentation or teaching a unit on Shakespeare. So let's get back to searching more in Lion, literature online. And I'm going to go back to text again. And now let's go into the search boxes, and I can do all text, poetry, drama, and prose. And I'm going to select drama just so it narrows this down. And because of the old spelling, notice that I can click on variant spellings and now launch my search. The variant spellings let you enter a modern English word in the keywords and check the variant spelling box, and you'll automatically retrieve all instances of your search term in its early modern variant forms in literature online. Notice here that in our results for Shakespeare, we have comedy, E-D-Y, comedy, E-D-I-E. There's also a box here for variant forms. Using that lets you lemmatize search terms. Lemmatization is a linguist term for the practice of bundling different forms of a word under the form in which the word is likely to appear in a dictionary. So you'll get things like love, loves, loveth, loving, loved. So that can be really helpful when you're searching these old texts. And it lets you, when you see, looking at old text, that a U looks like a V, things like that, using these two boxes. For more information about variant spelling and variant forms, check out their help box. So let's go back up and we're going to search in our text, alt text now, and just look at another. We're going to do title keywords again, and I'm going to do a Boolean search. This time I'm not going to check my boxes, just to show you, you do get an error message here and it gives you some ideas to use, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to check variant spellings and variant forms and launch search. And notice that trick is spelled with an E and devil is D-I-V-E-L-L in this. So it really makes a difference in using those two check boxes. So let's move along up here to the criticism tab. Again, we can search all criticism, or we can browse, and let's just launch a search here. I'm going to start by searching all criticism, and let's just put in Shakespeare and comedy. I know that folks are often looking for literary criticism. So here's our results for literary criticism for Shakespeare and comedy. We have a great variety here. Notice it lets you know you have full text PDF. If I go into one of these criticism articles, you'll see that I can email, print, export, and again, get the durable URL to the page, as well as get citation information for this article. It also lets you see it in PDF. And if you're printing this out or using this for a classroom, notice that you can hide the highlighting if you want to get those search terms off. Back up to my criticism tab under the browse. We can browse full text journals to locate articles in a particular issue of any journal in Lion that's got full text availability. You can also use the Cambridge Companions to Literature to locate an essay in a particular volume from Cambridge University Press series. Let's look at the titles here. So for example, the Cambridge Companion to British Theatre. The next tab over is reference. We can search all reference, or we can browse. We begin by browsing reference works, and here's the volumes of reference works in ProQuest Literature Online that you can browse through. For example, the Companion to the 20th Century American Short Story. And just move across the alphabetic lines for the authors. But the one I want to show you today is at the very bottom here. It's called a Shakespeare glossary. I'm going to go across here in the alphabet and we can find various words that you find in readings in Shakespeare. So I'm going to scroll down here. You can see there are a lot available. Just to give you some idea here. And I'm going to select frippery, and it gives you where this comes from and what work it appears in and what it means, a shop where old clothes are sold. I can go back out to my list and look up some other ones. Let's just pick another one here. I love fusty, and it means moldy or stale, and again it tells us what work this is out of. And I can email, print, export, and again link to this page and get my citation information. So a great addition if you're reading Shakespeare to have access to this reference work, the Shakespeare glossary. And that's here under reference works there at the bottom. Other items here under our reference work, of course, biographies, as we've seen. And I can move through those alphabetically. bibliographies. There's also 400 volumes from the series Penguin Classics. Here you can browse introductions to texts from Penguin Classics that are found here in Lion. And let's just open one up. The last thing on the list here under Browse in Reference is Knowledge Notes Student Guides. These provide critical overview of a particular text. So I'm going to go to the S's and grab one for Shakespeare. So here's the student guide on Comedy of Errors. It gives an overview of the author, and notice here my link table of contents on the left-hand side. I can get a list of the characters, see a plot summary, style, themes, and motifs. And we can jump to acts and scenes where you'll find information about it, a description, plus little exploration points and quotes and themes from that particular section. So if you're studying reading Shakespeare, what a great resource to help you learn more about what you're reading, find out more about the background, the author, and the writing itself. In addition to this About tab, which is our next one over here, at the top right you'll see that they have a Help tab, which gives you information about wherever you are in your search. Along with that, ProQuest has created a LibGuide for literature online, and you'll see that there are search tips, browsing authors, using criticism, looking at reference works, and reviewing your results. So a great helpful piece there. This particular LibGuide is linked from our research guide for literature, and I'll show you that at the end of this webinar. A ProQuest literature database specifically for K-12 students will be a good one to use, and it's also here under literature. It's called ProQuest Learning Literature, and it's specifically for K-12 students. Again, you will find author criticism study guides. You'll see those tabs here across the top. In addition, you'll have a tab for multimedia, and here's a tab for literary works. When we go into the tab for literary works, it lets you search for words in the text. And what's really nice is it gives you some searching hints, which is great for students. You can also search for word or words in the title, author information, and they give the format. And you can search in novels and short stories, plays, and poems. So we'll stick with our Shakespeare. So I typed in a character, and it's telling me who this character is and what play that character appears in. And there's my character. And it's highlighted in my search results. As we saw in Literature Online, ProQuest Learning Literature also has the study guides. So we can select, let's go down to Shakespeare here. And we can go into Romeo and Juliet. And there's our study guide for Romeo and Juliet. Again, we get information about the author, characters, plot, style, themes, and we can go to particular theme scenes and get the theme and some descriptive information. In addition to these study guides, they also include in the ProQuest Learning Literature study pages that include genre pages, period pages, literary movement, and Shakespeare. Under literary movement, this is a great place for your literature classes to get a background information about particular literary movements. The period pages is a great place to start as well to just get that information. Let's go into Elizabethan about the time period, the writers of the time, and link to images, critical articles, study guides, transcripts, websites, and they include some study questions. The genre pages, let's look at one of those. Let's look at tragedy. So here's information about tragedy, the background on this genre, and again, writers of that genre. And if we scroll down, you'll see that they have, again, the criticism, the study guides, and the study questions. Right above that, study questions, you'll see a link to audio clips, and you can go into one called Greek Tragedy. I'm going to go on to the Shakespeare pages here under Study Pages, and let's select Julius Caesar this time. A little information about the literary period, Shakespeare, and biographical information, but then we've got literary works and multimedia. I'm going to click on multimedia, and you can go into a clip of Julius Caesar. It gives you options here for various formats to play it in. But I've already set this up. I'm going to pull up the next slide so that you have the text. Most of these will let you find the text and play the clip.
Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus have to...
By putting those two things side by side so that your patrons, your students can hear these words being read, I think really adds to the richness of this experience on learning an introduction to Shakespeare. Let's go back to the main page and just do a quick search on Shakespeare. When I do a specific search, rather than going into individual tabs, I can narrow them down here, tabbing at the top. Here's my matches, and then again, reference, criticism, all of that is broken down under William Shakespeare. So if we wanted to look at some of the criticism, you'll see that it gives the full text out of specific scholarly journals. We can cite this, and notice I can change the citation style, and I can link to this page, print, save, email this article. I can go back to my search results. So as you can see, there's a lot of in-depth information here for studying Shakespeare, but let's do one more audio experience, and that's here on the left, and that's Poets Onscreen. Found in both ProQuest Literature Online and ProQuest Learning Literature, we've got this Poets Onscreen collection that showcases contemporary poets reading their own work or works of others, so you can see and hear poets' interpretation of the work. They have 3 sonnets by Shakespeare. It gives who's reading it and how long that clip is. And again, I've got several ways to play it.
Sonnet number 73 by William Shakespeare. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves are none or few, to hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs relate the sweet birds sang.
So just another way to bring some of this to life for your patrons and students. And here at the top, many of these would include the text of whatever's being read. So you could put those side by side. Let's look at some other resources now. Another place to look for some information on Shakespeare would be to use our Britannica collection. I'm going to go to Britannica Public Library and select the Reference Center. Notice that their look has changed a bit, so take a look at this when you get a chance, but I'm just going to launch our search here at the top. And I'm just going to put in Shakespeare. And on my results page, you'll see that I have my results here, whether it's the name of the article or Shakespeare appears in some other encyclopedia articles. It includes images and video tabs across the top. And on the left-hand side, I can jump right to the images, videos, dictionary, websites, primary sources, and let's link to primary sources and ebooks. So under Shakespeare, this gives me, for example, The Tempest from the Gutenberg Project. And let me just scroll down so you can see other works here. So it's going to be works about Shakespeare, by Shakespeare, and of course other Shakespeares. And there's a link to study guides as well. There's Study Guide to Shakespeare and His World, which brings up my table of contents. So I can go into Shakespeare's language, for example. There's activities, a glossary, and other resources. And I can move across here using the numbers, or the content list is there at the bottom left. There are also a few of the plays in study guide form. For example, here's King Lear, and again, there's my table of contents talking about King Lear, the language of the play, the productions, the structure. I'm going to go back out to my search results and open the William Shakespeare article. Notice when I get into the article at the top right, I have levels. I can stay in Public Library Reference Center, but I can move that down to Reading Level 2 or Reading Level 1. And this option is also in the school version. So if you've got, say, a high school student that's reading at a lower level, they can go into the high school level Britannica, click on a different level here, they'll stay in the same high school Britannica, but it will be at a lower reading level and more approachable. On the left-hand side, you'll see our table of contents, so I can jump to those parts. One of the ones I want to show is the table, and that gives you a chronology of all those plays. Within the article, there's a table of contents. If I click on that, I can jump around to various parts within that article. There's also a print, email, citation link, and I can increase and decrease the font. On the left-hand side, the next tab over is images and videos, where I can find various images and go into some video clips for Shakespeare.
To cure the evils of their conditions, to drive out that folly which is bound up in their heart.
So many points for video and audio for Shakespeare. There's also a related tab when you're in Britannica, and it will also lead you to related people, places, and things. And it keeps the primary source and website links as well. Let's look at another one. This time let's go to History Study Center. This one includes historical documents, reference material, audio, video, and is a great history resource for both students and adults. Once we get our results page up, it will show what study units are available. So like we've seen in the other ones, we do have great student study guides. Historical documents, notice there are 5 listed. Always watch for the more results. So that one says it has 77 items, and we can go into these historical documents, including, here's Henry V. And notice to view the image for this document, you need to click here. And it takes you into the full text of that historical document. I can go back to my study unit here in the top left, or straight back to all of the results for Shakespeare. You scroll down, you'll see below the historical documents, there are reference materials on Shakespeare, some images again, and journal articles. Another resource geared more towards the younger and school set is Sir's Discoverer. Notice that they've added some new material. If you've not been in here in a while, they've added nonfiction books, animal facts. So this will give us a different look on our Shakespeare search. There are tabs across the top, newspapers, magazines, reference items, and graphics, as well as links to websites. Here in our results list, you'll see we've got encyclopedia from Compton's, the Weekly Reader, let me just keep scrolling down. You'll see newspapers, and then as young as an article out of Calliope. It also lists all the Lexile reading scores. I can narrow this. Again, we've got everything intermixed as evidenced by the icons on the left, but I can open just the reference items, for example, or just the magazines by using my tabs. Under reference, you'll see that one of my citations is Stratford upon Avon. So as you're studying Shakespeare and want to review his hometown, here's Stratford upon Avon information. For more on that, another one I thought would be a good place to go, and that would be Culturegrams, to get a look at that part of the world. In Culturegrams, we can use the World Edition and the Kids Edition. I would recommend using both. We can use the map to find our location, or on the top left, notice there's a drop-down menu. Once we're in our country, you'll see there's basic background information, photo galleries, slideshows. But here on the left-hand side, I just wanted to point out a couple of things, and that is that you can get background about the people, population, language, but I'm going to open up the arts here under lifestyle. And here under the arts for United Kingdom, there's information included about William Shakespeare. If you go to the one for kids, which is also linked here on the main page of the World Edition, on the bottom left, below all the people, places, history, life as a kid, there's one called Author that includes information about Shakespeare. So you can see there's lots and lots of information available in our resources on gowild.net to access Shakespeare in words, in audio, in video, in activities, and in background information. Much of this information has been gathered in our literature research guide, which can be found linked here on the literature subject page. Within this, you'll see that we've listed databases, and if you scroll down, there's a section on Shakespeare linking to some of these items. This webinar today will also be linked here at the top of the webinar and tutorial section. These research guides are also linked here at the top on gowild.net under Help and Tutorials, where you'll see the full list. Also on that page to the right, you'll see all the webinar tutorials that we've done that are now archived. It'll also take you to a link for Go Wild. Be sure and check out those webinars and LibGuides, research guides, and also remember that on the State Library homepage there is a databases blog that gives you subject information or changes to our databases. Thanks for joining in today. Bye now.